first house in our ascendant is actually owned and ruled by Mercury and Saturn. We know that Mercury is the messenger of the gods. In mythology, Mercury is sending messages between the underworld and the upper world and all the different worlds. Mercury is very clever, wanting to learn and adapt and outsmart situations. So the first house represents who we are in our chart. And when we come into this life, we come in as Mercury. That first wall that we face is Saturn. Saturn in Greek mythology is also called Kronos, and Kronos is the god of time. So who we are in our lives is a combination of Mercury outsmarting situations and overcoming obstacles, and Saturn being those obstacles. And you can see that as we grow, we come out into the world completely helpless, and little by little, those walls start to expand. We eventually learn to crawl, and then our world gets this much bigger. We eventually learn to walk, and then all of a sudden we have so much more of our world accessible to us. So as we get older, Mercury is pushing against those walls of Saturn and learning to find those little crevices and those little ways to sneak around certain walls and to stay safe. Saturn returns are like a really big thing that people love to talk about. I'm 26, about to turn 27. Everyone is talking about, oh, my Saturn return. And anyone who is older than 30 knows that between 27 and 30, you go through a lot of changes. And I want to illustrate a little bit why and how that works. So Saturn takes about 27 to 30 years to cycle the sun. So that's its year. If you split that up into 4 quarters, we can look at some of these different time periods. So when we're born, 0, and then add 6.5 to that, so about 6 years old, and 6.5 to that, about 13, 6.5 to that, you get about 20, and then 27. So let's look at these ages really quickly. So 0, we leave this very comfortable womb, we're thrust into the world, freezing, in a very dangerous world where we have no ability to protect ourselves. So that's like the first impact of Saturn right there. And then we get to about 6 years old. So think about when you're 5 going from 5 to 6. So 5 we're in kindergarten, we turn 6, we're in first grade. All of a sudden it's not just playtime and toys anymore. We have to go to class, we have to start practicing our cursive, we have to start learning math. And also it's the first time where we start to feel self-conscious and we're wanting our peers to like us and accept us. And we don't really know how to navigate that, we don't really know what to do with that. So that's the first quarter. 90 degrees square of Saturn in our lives. The next one is 13. So 13, we're becoming a teenager. We're entering middle school. Here's where all the drama really starts. That level of self-consciousness gets even stronger. We're starting to ask, who am I? And we're starting to wonder, what's my responsibility? We have our parents telling us, these are your responsibilities. And so there's also that rebellion. Well, I want to figure this out myself, and I want to do this myself, and I don't want to do that. And then we come to 20, and we're starting to finish college. We're starting to really get anxious about what's next. Where am I going to move? What am I going to do? I have to get a job. Your parents may have said, we're not going to necessarily be able to support you anymore, so you're sort of getting kind of cut off. At 27, we come back to our first full cycle. This is an opportunity where we can look at that whole distance that we've come. Learning to walk, to learning how to get people to like you, to eventually not caring as much about whether people like you or not. So here we are, 27, and we're starting to assimilate all of the information. What have I gained through this process, and what are those walls that I pushed down? And also we start to wonder, what are some of the things that I lost along the way? Some of our innocence, some of our trust, some of our passion have potentially gotten lost in that process as well as we tried to figure out our place in the world. So 27 to 30 is where we began a really big piece of that. Saturn spends about 2.5 years in a sign, and about half of that year, so 0.5 of those 2.5 years, are spent in retrograde. People love to talk about Mercury in retrograde, but every planet goes retrograde actually, and they're all very relevant and important. Mercury is not the most important retrograde cycle. What happens is the planet is moving forward, it stops, goes backward for a little while, stops, and it goes forward again. So Saturn was stationary retrograde March 14th. It's been moving forward, is now slowing down. Right now is coming to a very slow halt, and it's going to be stationary direct on August 1st. And then we're going to start building forward momentum. If Saturn is influencing you, you'll know, because these past few months from March to now have probably brought up a lot of old things for you. Old emotions, old fears, old issues have been really an opportunity to come to the surface and heal and release those. If that's been happening for you for the past couple months, guaranteed you have a relationship to Saturn. As soon as we get to August 1st, That day might be a little bit stressful just because when a big planet like that comes to a halt, it can create the feeling of being powerless. So if you can just relax into the fact that you can't control a situation around those days, then you can probably relax into this and not have it be stressful. And then you'll start getting some positive momentum into your next phase. Stay tuned for my latest videos, and I'll be talking more about all of these different things, hoping to inspire some of you to learn more about the topic of Greek astrology. Have a good day, and talk to you soon.